Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Watching this recording later, welcome live, and welcome to you as well. Today, we're going to cover a little bit about our demos and how we're going to put our demos together. Just touch on a few things with SAP and Tulip for project management and other things. In fact, we gave a demo about a week ago, I think it was, and we showed production. So that's kind of what I'll probably do today. I'll do the production one because it's still fresh in my mind. But the ability of the software interfacing with SAP is just so many different things you can do with it. So again, I'm Joseph Guargenti. I do SAP Business.ONE development, such as add-ons and solutions. So one of the things that we needed was a project management tool, because the ones that we were using, we had to create our own databases and user-defined fields and then link those to SAP documents for billing. It was a lot of work, even for the sales portion of it, for doing a quote. I mean, it just ended up being a lot of things that we had to do in order to fulfill project management inside of SAP, until SAP now has the project management, which over there, project management tool, or documents that they put in here, which gives you the flexibility of setting up projects and doing stages for those projects. And then inside of those projects, you can also have open issues, and you can attach attachments, and then you can have different document types that you can add with it. Of course, you have to click on the line in which you want to add the document type. You can do work orders and activities. So it really brings all of the aspects of project management into SAP. Now, we see more of SAP as the billing portion of it, tracking users, employees, timesheets, activities. Because even for individual activities, we can interface with those as well. So we can have, whether it's a general call or if it has to do with something with support. And then the support, it could have an error, like SAP is displaying an error, or kick me out, logged in, failed. So you can have different types of activities, subject matter associated with those activities. And of course, you can define your own if you feel a need to. Even for like human resources, maybe we started an employee search. We're going to review some resumes. I guess I could show that too, because I kind of put one of those together. But we can show that as well. And if you're joining in, there's also the ability to phone in to a conference. You can phone into a conference and voice yours instead of just typing in the chat window, because we have the chat is turned on. This was just me doing a little testing earlier. So as you can see over here off to the side, there's a little chat window that will, if you type inside of the YouTube chat, it will display for us, and then we can answer your questions if you don't want to call in. If you do want to call in and join in on the conference, at the bottom of the description, you'll see something for the test demo. And for that test demo, there's a little link in there, and that'll take you right into our Uber conference. And then you'll be part of the interaction and ask your questions verbally as opposed to typing them in. Now, of course, this will only work for the live. If you're watching the video afterwards, you won't have that ability. Let's see, what else we got going here? So basically today is kind of giving a test run on doing the demos and live streaming them. And live streaming them for people who don't really even know what it is that they want to ask, or what it is they want to see, because they don't know what it is. After you give this little demo, if it interests you, we have a way to schedule a demo just right up in here. So you would pick the day in which you want to schedule your demo. We limit this to 5 participants in the conference call. Today we're opening it up to anybody. Anybody can call in and voice and use their voice in the conference call. But normally we're going to limit this to 5 so that we can cover all of the material in which they ask for. Because one of the things about this system is it's not a cookie cutter. And I'll kind of demo that when I go through Tulip. It's not cookie cutter, because no company is cookie cutter in the way they do processes, the way they handle workflow, who's assigned to what. It's just not. It's not like that. So if you come up to the project management, this is also in the link below for scheduling a demo. You'll come in here, and whatever time zone that you're in, as you can see here, we kind of staggered every other week to be kind of US time zone, and then we jump to a much later time zone for people who would just be waking up at, we're still being in bed at 11 a.m. Eastern time here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then, so they would call in at 7, so it might be, early morning for them. So let's just take a look at the booking. So you come in here and you're going to schedule a booking. You just give your first name, last name, company, email, and then what you would like to see. I would just want to know what this is, what kind of value it brings. So you would just kind of check those boxes off as to what you want to see during the demo, so that we can kind of tailor it. Because again, this is not a cookie cutter system. It is easy to use after it's implemented. And then you might just type in here what it is that you want to put in the box down here below for your description. And then you just confirm your booking. Once you send out your booking, that'll end up coming to us, and we'll know we have a booking, but also you'll receive an email with all the information to join the conference, the time in which it is, and we'll send out reminders before the conference starts. So that's how that would work out. And again, we use the Uber conference to handle all of that. The software that we're using for displaying all of this and for streaming is OBS. Open Broadcast System, I believe it's called. Been using it for years to do all of our production videos and stuff like that. We can set up different screens to maximize what it is that we're trying to display at that time. And as you saw when we opened up, we can do opening screens and stuff like that, kind of give you an idea. But that's all just bells and whistles. Doesn't really pertain to this. I just thought it would be nice that kind of a person that likes to share. All right, so we got that. Let's see what else I wanted to cover here before we jump into anything in particular. I think that covers. Wanted to explain about the demoing process, and we're streaming it so that like I said, if you don't want to participate, you don't have to participate. You can just watch. So let's go into Tulip, because Tulip is really the meat and potatoes behind this KB1 PMOS system that we put together. And it's an open source platform. Great bunch of people over at Tulip. They have their own. I wish Matteo was on the line, because he would be able to share a little bit more with you about Tulip and all of their customers. But they have some very, very large customers in the tens of thousands that are using Tulip in their environment, in their company, to handle things. So super cool. So it's open source. So the only thing that we're really doing is we're bridging what is available inside of Tulip to SAP. Now we kind of see this replacing anything that we would do. Sorry, once again on screen. The things that we would do inside of SAP, as far as like doing the project management and the activities, and I'll kind of show you that. But SAP is awesome for, you know, invoicing, the sales orders, the timesheets, the resources, the items that are going to be produced, custom items that are machined. So this is, you know, awesome place for all of that, to, you know, for all of that information and for defining that. But it's not really a place to kind of open the door up to not only employees, so that the employees can come in and enter their time, because there's no real reason for an employee to come in here and, you know, mess around with the project, or maybe even view the project. And we feel that Tulip is the place for that. They would do everything online. This way you can also open this door up to external vendors. And when you open the door up to external vendors, you can allow them to do the work that they need to do without exposing the whole project to them, without exposing the cost. One of the things that we end up doing when we create our user-defined fields is we have user-defined fields for time, not cost, not what's going to be billed. So nobody really needs to know what it is that you're charging for the project. Nobody needs to know the information of, you know, how much of a budget that you have, how much of that budget is gone. There's just no real reason for them to have that type of information. But you also want collaboration between the stakeholder or the customer. Sorry, I call them stakeholders because we kind of work in a agile fashion. But you want them to, you know, take part in it, but not be exposed to all of the information that's in there. Let's hop back on over here. Go into this demo. So like I was saying, about a week ago, someone asked for a demo on Tulip, because they're thinking about using this to replace several of the tools that they have, or just wanted to get a feeling of what it is that Tulip can do for them. So what we ended up doing was putting something together for them. And that's one of the things, like when you sign up for the demo, give us an outline of what it is that you would like to see, a goal that you're trying to achieve within inside of your business. And in their case, they manufacture internal parts, CNC machines, lathes, whatever. But they manufacture custom parts for their process in order to provide a finished good to their customer. So in that case here, I built this out for them specifically. And it didn't take long because most of the elements that we have are already in place. It's just a matter of arranging them in a manner that works with inside of their business. So one of the things about Tulip is that you can have different types of dashboards based on, or different types of, what do we want to call these? I guess they would be like a dashboard for assembly, for items, so in this case, they needed a fluorescent light to be put into an item. Their manufactured item. So in this case, they were going to manufacture the Chicago Blackhawks, and because we're hockey fans. And this individual that I was speaking with was also a hockey fan, but for the wrong team. So, and then we have the production orders, and what stages the production orders are in. So if they're in backlog or if they're in an order, you can take, you can see this all graphically. You can see how many items are open, how many orders you have, how many are closed, percentage-wise, the planned quantity. So since this is going to be a manufactured part, and this is a prototype, we have a prototype here, and we're going to be creating that. So we want to just only create one of those, and then a final work order may be 100 of them. Although I think they'd sell out pretty darn quick. Yes, final work order may be 100 of them. Although I think they'd sell out pretty darn quick. Yes, final work order may be 100 of them. Oh, we got somebody who joined us on the Uber conference. Ah, it's Matteo. Hello, Matteo. I was just going through Tulip, so you can jump in at any time there. Let me know. Again, if you decide to join into the conference, go ahead and mute your YouTube, and then you can interact. Because I actually brought up your name while we were talking to tell everybody about Tulip and the customers. How many you have? Quite a few large customers with tens of thousands of users using Tulip. So if you want to jump in at any time for that, that would be great. So for them, like I said, the production orders and stuff like that is what we had set up for there. And now, so one of the things that I thought was cool, because they have Q&A, they have raw items. So in the raw items, they have like some sheet metal in order, because they're going to take the sheet metal and they're going to form it into a sign, and then they'll take the glass and put it in there. And also with that, they're going to also put in, a fluorescent light bulb. So there's 2 fluorescent light bulbs that went into the prototype, and then of course then we're going to need 200 if we end up doing a sales order for 200 of them. Now, one of the things that I thought was really super cool is that if we go to our manufactured item, one of the things that can take place is that they can have this, but let's say this is going to like a CNC machine. When it goes to that CNC machine, they want to have the ability to have the CAD or the layout of how they're supposed to set it all up. Now, I don't use CAD or anything like that, but Blender is a nice 3D animation tool. So let's click on that. Now it'll ask me, by the way, I'm running on top of Linux. It's what we use internally for all of our machines. But I'm going to open it up with Blender, my default program for that. Let's kick that open. And as that opens up, boom, we just click on it, and there, it just opened up for us. And from there, they can take a look at their CAD drawing. They can, get all of the information out of the CAD that they need. So they can, pull that information in and manufacture that part. So just to give you an idea that it's just so easy to tie into it the actual maybe data that would be going to the CNC machine and just feed it right in there. So if they have a desktop unit there, they just download, if they need to, like say it's an old CNC machine, maybe it doesn't have an interface, but they can drop it down to the computer. They can pull the CAD off of there onto a USB stick and then toss that into the machine and voila, done. Close that out. And let's see. So yeah, you can attach whatever types of documents that you want to that. And then as we go through the different scenarios, so let's take a look at, let's go to our reports, because our reports will allow us to show you a little bit more on how you can set up things inside of Tulip so that you can, set it up in the way that, again, the way your business works. So if you don't have a setup procedure, you just start producing it, and drop it to QA, quality assurance, you just do that. But if this is your process, we go, okay, we're going to take the to list and we're going to drop it into our setup. Now, when we do these different stages, there can be restrictions on who is allowed to make those movements from, say, the to do or the back order into setup, and then from setup to production, and then back and forth between pause and producing, pause and producing, and then drop it into QA. So once it's in QA, you may not want the machine operator to be able to QA his own stuff, so you would limit that. So as we move it through here, we go, okay, we're going into setup, and then once we're done with setup, we're going to drop it into, we're going to start producing this. So as the individual is producing this, and once they're finished producing this, they're going to take it and they're going to drop it into QA. So when they drop it into QA here, the planning, I don't have certain things turned on right now, but you can also set it up so that they are required to say how many of them were completed, the quantity that was completed, and how many were rejected. And I guess I can show you that really quickly here. Let's drop in trackers, and we're going to drop in manufactured item. These are our time estimates for as we're doing things. So let's go into it. So let's go into the workflow, because this is where you can really define what it is that you want to allow during the workflow. So from the to do to the setup, from the setup to produce the item. So when you're in producing the item, you want to allow them to pause it. Maybe it's the end of day and they haven't finished, or they want to drop it into QA. And then from there, if it's in pause, we're going to allow them to go back into producing that item, or we're going to drop it into QA. And then after QA is done with it, they'll drop it to done. Now, done is a state. So if you think about SAP document types, there is a once a document is closed, put into this closed stage, most of us know that you can't open up a SAP document any longer, or make any modifications or changes to it. So this done right here, let's go back to SAP and kind of show it in an activity. See, we have this inactive and close, because one of the things that we work with are activities. So we have this activity or inactive and close. So inactive just means, okay, we believe it's done. And that's kind of the same philosophy that we have taken with this procedure here. So as it moves through there, and once it's done, and once it goes to close, that's it, stop, no more touching. So let's take a look now from, let's take a nice one here. So let's say when we are going from producing to our done, or to our QA. So we're going to move it to the QA. Oh, and I'll show you this little status marker that I put on here. But we may also require that that field for the number of machine items completed must be set so that the person that's doing the Q&A would be able to know how many of them that they're going to test out of the 100 that we sent to them. Maybe the machine operator was only able to get 50 done, so he's just going to tell QA that there's 50 ready for testing. Let's go back to our workflow. Oh, there's also, yeah, there's so much stuff. I don't want to go off on a tangent because I know I can do that quite easily. But there's also part of the management for moving from each one of those stages that I was just showing you. So if we take a look at our status here, so when something is in, and if you're thinking about this in SAP terms, and you're thinking about it when it comes to the inactive and the closed, you'll get a really good idea. So when it's inactive, and we missed one there, so when it's in the, it's marked as inactive, set to no, reverse logic there. Inactive, set to no, we go through here and we just say that this is the state in which the SAP field that's on the activity will be set. So as you can see, it's like this, and then when we drop it to done, we mark it as inactive, and then when we drop it to closed, because closed could have taken place prior to being done, so it may have been still active, so this would still be set to no, and it allows you to do that. Submit that. And we can do that for each one of them. So same thing with closed. When closed comes in, its closed is marked as no until it actually moves into the closed stage. And then once it moves into the closed stage, this here becomes closed. Or the document becomes closed if we're looking at it from a document standpoint, if we're going to close out a document. And we can handle all of those fields. Now, what the sweet thing about this is, again, we are using SAP documents for almost everything that we do. So we're not creating a bunch of user-defined tables or user-defined fields to hold this information. We have that capability to do that. I can show you here when we look at that one. When we take a look at one of the things that we do on the back end is we kind of have these databases in which we tie what is called the tracker or the container that holds all of the information. So you can see here we're pointing it to the activities one, but we can point it to any different types of documents that we may have inside of our system. So if it has to do with a user-defined field, of course, most of us know that the user-defined fields start with an @ plus, some code. If you're a developer, your business partner code would be put in there, and then it's underscore, blah, blah, blah. So that will allow us to move this information into a different document type. So one of the things that, where should I go first? Okay, let's go to the field usages first. So in here, you can kind of see how we set up our field usages. This is where we define, for this field type, where this information resides. So for our status, if we open that up, we can see like all of the things that we can set up for doing our statuses. And that would be equivalent to this part right up here where we're moving it into the different stages. So see, KB1 status is here, and that's how that information is being displayed. Now, then there's assignment. We can assign this item, like say like this one is for machining, so we're going to assign it to maybe the CNC and warehouse 01, CNC 100 and warehouse 01, but it's at station 2, or maybe it's in a different warehouse and it's a different type. But we can assign, and when we assign that, that information, then that user that's in that group can, take on the responsibility to produce that product on their machine. Oh, and one of the things that you see here, and this is really sweet, one of the things that you see right here, I have an underscore KB1 underscore assignee, because this information I don't really feel needs to go into SAP or a user-defined field for that SAP. But if I decide that I want this, all I have to do is now the system will automatically add this to the document type that's defined that it's supposed to be storing in, and this information will then be copied into that field. So that's how easy it is to add a user-defined field inside of SAP. You might manage it up here, and then that information then gets put on that document type down in SAP. And then if we take a look at like here where we have, so this one is linked to the OITM item code. And then if it's specific on a document, it just details, content, and if you look at here, we got activity type. So if we look at activity type, it's called action. If we hop back on over to SAP and we take a look at, turn on our system information, take a look at, so that's that. And here's our action field. So that ties into here, phone calls, meetings. And if we take a look at a different one, that's our codes. Let's go with activity type on that. So we can see we got customers, we've got managers, teams, support, projects. And again, if we take a look at the user-defined field, it's CNTCTTYPE. And if we have over E, and we take the user-defined field here. Ooh. If you can see down in the lower right-hand corner, we got CNTCT. Oh, that's the subject, sorry. Type, there you go. So we're hovering over type, which gives us our same ones that we have inside of Tulip. So you got that one-to-one relationship. This part in SAP is really cool because when you do define, the type, you can then also have a subtype. So like if you see here where we have general, when we go to subject, we have nothing. But if we switch over to say something like support, and we bring this down, we have all the different things that can be assigned to support. This is sweet. But most of the fields in SAP do not work this same way. And that is the same here in the project management, is that these here are independent of the task types that are being, that the activity type is supposed to represent. So if we're building a charter for, a charter meaning that it's a project charter that defines the scope of the project, what the customer is looking for, if it's a, if the task is of a type of a consulting, we still have all of the options here. So there's no way to really say, if it's a consulting type, all we really want to have is, not Q&A, because maybe that doesn't make sense, or pass and fail Q&A, or shareholder acceptance. None of those make any sense for a stage type of consulting. So we're thinking about removing this altogether, and then again going with what we have inside of Tulip, which then, like I was saying earlier, gives us that ability to manage the dependencies on the field to say that if the subject type is production, they can only go to machine, assembly, or other. Maybe there's a maintenance program, but it really defines the structure of the data that's going to be going to SAP and limits the selection and the options to just the ones that are relevant to that. All right. Now let's get into a little bit of the permission settings. So on the permission settings for managing, again, the container that holds everything is called a tracker. The tracker is just a container that holds all of the information, just like you would have in an SAP document. It's a document type relationship. So for we can set up things for like registered users, what they have access to. Maybe it's only artifacts that they submitted is the only thing they have access to. Project members may only have artifacts that they submitted, or maybe that is assigned to the group. So that really kind of limits who has access to the information that's this information. Hold on. Oh, there we go. It reconnected. I'm sorry. I don't know which part I missed. Am I on? Okay. I was just pointing to Marina to ask if I'm still on. And I am. So, again, with the permissions level on the tracker, we can state who it is that has permissions to get into there, into that information. So maybe a stakeholder, maybe a vendor. We may have these EIs and ECs are vendors that we set up as employees so that we can do the billing for those employees, do the 1099s, and maybe those are independent consultants that have their own company, so we're going to pay them directly. They'll do their own taxes, or an EC is an employee company. So that company may have multiple employees with inside of there that we may assign tickets to, assign a artifact. Artifact is the individual group of data that's defined inside the tracker. And I know this is a lot of stuff to take in because it's a lot for me. So, or maybe this, if we're having an issue with a client and the client is having connectivity issues, or their SAP is running slow, let's say, for example, but they're hosted at another SAP partner's site. So then we can just assign the issue to that cloud provider, and they'll get the ticket, and we don't have to go messing around with their system. They just get the ticket in an email to their support, and they handle it the way they need to. But we are the owners of the information. So as they make changes, they say, they move an item from to do to in progress to completed, and they say, oh, the completion is done, and they give a reason code or how they fixed it. All of that information we will hold, or if you're running the system, you will hold. So, because this is your client, this is not the hoster's client. This is not but you need to keep track of what is going on with your client. And just because they're hosted at another partner's site doesn't mean that the data should be everything should be turned over to them. And this is where the chain of custody comes into play. This is where knowing where your information is, knowing who's responsible for resolving something. Emails are just absolutely terrible in this day and age for resolving issues, because everybody says, well, I didn't know that it was assigned to me. There was 20 people on the email. How do I know that it was assigned to me? Or it was my responsibility to do that? That's where this comes into play. ownership, important. So we can also have permissions at the field level. So the individual information like the item code, the ID, artifacts, the status. So let's take a look at our status one. So here a register user can only read it, but the managers can update it. Let's say we have, let's see, a good one here. I'm kind of looking for a good one. It's item code. Yeah, see here's a really good example. So from the item code perspective, we may allow someone like an update from a project member, but we can also just say, oh, they can only submit it, but after that, they can only read only. Or maybe we don't even want them to be able to read it, so we just turn it off altogether. So they can submit it when they submit the original information, but they can't make any modifications to it after that initial submission of the ticket. So this works really great when, let's say you have a support ticket. When someone submits a support ticket, you don't want to ever allow the changing of the header information that was inside of that ticket, because that's kind of how the submitter put it in. So you don't want to change that. All right, like I said, there's just so much. And then we can get into emails and hierarchy. But one of the things why I was talking to this client about doing these production orders is that, this is kind of how I first laid it out for them, is that we'd have a production order. Underneath that, the stage before it's finished would be Q&A. We may have assembly that takes place. So in this case, assembling the Blackhawks image. And of course, then we'd have our manufacturing underneath assembly, because we need to assemble this raw and then assemble this goods for it to be assembled. And then of course we have items like the fluorescent lights. But underneath the manufactured item, we need to know what the raw goods are that go into the manufactured item. So this is how I originally laid it out to them. But there is no reason why we can't just take the production order and have it be just for manufacturing an item. So we're only going to push manufactured items here. We'll have an assembly at another stage for defining its own under product orders. So let's take that. So in this case, let's just break that off of there, submit it. So we have the product order. Then maybe we don't want to have the assembly be part of that. So again, this is why it's so important that we get an outline of what it is that you're looking for. And then from there, we can really define how you work first and foremost. And believe me, we have no problem voicing our opinion if we think that something doesn't flow properly, and we think, you know what, it may be better to do it this way or that way. But that's part of the discussion process. And then defining how it is that you want it laid out is different. And in this particular case, one of the things that popped up during our conversation was not only do they produce this item for a customer, but they also need to get approval from the city, because this gets on the outside of a building. So they need to get the permits from the city in order to do this. But not only that, they don't do the assembly or the installation themselves, so they assign this to a third party to do the installation of the item that they have created. So those I suggested would be broken down into activities. So one activity that we would define inside of SAP and inside of Tulip would be to get the work permit in order to install the item. Another aspect would be to set up an activity to assign the installer the information in order to install the sign. And then again, setting up an activity instead of SAP, then we can define like, the timesheets that go along with that, because there's also the ability to add timesheet entries against, activities that you have in here. Let's just kind of switch over to I haven't been here in a while, so let's go in here. This is our barbecue. So maybe one of the things that we have inside of here, not gonna allow that. Crackers. Let's beepers. Let me pull up how I have this one set up, because I forget it. Getting how I have this one set up. So let's go or higher. Oh, okay. So under our, because we don't want to have them be able to enter time all over the place, so we're only allowing it under the sub project PM. If we take a look at the tracker and our sub project PM, and we take a look at as it goes through these different stages, one of the things that we can do is we can hit this button and we can add a time against it. And these would go directly with SAP timesheets. I don't know if I'm going to have time to show all that. I've got about 15 more minutes, and I didn't want to overwhelm everybody. But so you can enter a title, for it. And oh, this is great. So, who is assigned to, what needs to take place, who's entering their time, the type of activity. This ties into, that's why I'm overwhelmed sometimes. But one of the things that you have inside of SAP is under the other details, you have the ability to set the activity type. Now, when you set the activity type, that also can then tie into a billable rate and how much something is billed. And I'm forgetting where all my stuff is at, but oh, I'm drawing a blank now. But each one of these is like a non-bill. Oh, here we go. So we pull that open there. We can define, it's a labor type, what the hourly rate is, so on and so forth. So all of that information would automatically be tied in with the activity type, non-billable, billable, consulting, da 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 da. And I'm sorry if I hop all over the place. This is how my brain works. The amount of time they put in for the billable event, maybe how much unbillable event time, so on and so forth. We require information like details for what took place for that time entry. So all of this information then can be submitted against that individual task or story, depending on which levels you work at. So if we're talking about true project management, this system handles waterfall, sadly enough. It also handles agile and different forms of agile. So if you want to set up a Kanban board, do sprints, burn down charts, all of that is, you can do that with inside of the system. And again, all of this information links within inside of SAP. So as we make these changes up here with, cooking our food and then whether or not it was approved, and what our criteria is for it to, to say that it was our, what do I want to call that? I know I'd call it something. Acceptance rules. So, acceptance rules for grabbing all of this food, for purchasing all the food, is that we're going to make sure that the refrigerator is full. So each one of those can have an acceptance criteria for it. and this is what it comes to. One of the things I wanted to just briefly cover with the time entries is with the time entries, and I know many of us have issues with time entry, but one of the things with the time entries, as if we have it in our nice little layout with our time entry, we can set up some columns and stuff like that. But anyways, and then it shows who's assigned. But one of the things with time entries is that as something gets finished off and someone submits their time, they may submit it like 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later. Now, this is unacceptable for both, and I'm talking about like independent consultants submitting their time back to you at such a later date. How do you bill a client for something that took place 2 months ago? They just don't know what it is that took place 2 months ago. So one of the things like we've added to the time tracker is that when we can actually reject someone's time, and we may have, and you can define your own, but you know, service date entered is outside a company billing cycle policy. So in this case, hey, you submitted time for something 2 months ago. Sorry, we're going to need to negotiate. Maybe we can't pay you the full price, and we're not sure that the client will pay it. But you can actually set up your own criteria for after someone submits their time. Maybe it's not a billable event. They marked it as billable. You can say that it seems to have gone against the wrong activity, so on and so forth. But there's just so many things that you can do with each one of the trackers, and that's all handled through the workflow process when you move it through each one of these stages. So when someone submits their time, accepted, but if we hit it to rejected, we're also, and who is able to move that item to the rejective stage. And then we're also going to require, if it's moved to rejected, we're also going to require the rejection reason. One more thing, and then I think I'm going to wrap it up. And that is, I wanted to show something here in the product demo. So we go back to our trackers in the product demo in this manufactured item. As you recall, we took that item and we moved this to the Q&A stage. Now, earlier I showed you that we had a field inside of the tracker that said start marker or mark time. Let's see. Oh, here, status mark time. So as each time that the stage changes, so we went from, you know, status of, you know, waiting to be, you know, to set up the machine. Once we set, you know, like here, it moved from the to do to the set up the machine. We marked the time. And then when it moved from the setup into from setup to the producing of the item, we mark the time. So this difference here between the two can actually give us an idea of how long it takes to set up the machine. And then when it moves from, you know, from the producing stage to the Q&A stage, we can also mark that as well. So you can mark each one of these to give yourself a good idea of how long each stage had taken, so that maybe later on you can define your processes better, or your process or workflow better, so that you can know how long something is going to take, or know how much something is going to cost. If you originally estimated it taking like 15 minutes and it takes 15 hours, maybe it's time to, you know, take a look at adjusting that. So with that, I think I should stop, because like I said, I can go on forever. you can set up all of these different things. You can have like these little graphs and, you know, set up things just so sweet. And lay out here anything that you want to put on the you know, display on the dashboard, so graphics and stuff. Okay, so and with that, I believe if Matteo would like to say a few words about Tulip, I'll turn it over to him, and he can give us a little speech on Tulip. Matteo, are you there? You have to unmute yourself. And then you can, the rest of the show is for you to take over and talk about Tulip. Let's take 1, 2, 3. Hello.
I'm here, but hi everyone. Can you hear me?
The rest of the show is for you to take over.
Yes,
and if you want to mute.
Hi, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, just mute your YouTube.
No, you cannot hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Hello, hello.
We can hear you, Matteo.
Hello.
You're on.
I'm here, but
you're Matteo. You'll have to turn off your YouTube feed because you're waiting for that feedback, and there's probably about anywhere between a 2-second to 5-second delay in the audio. So turn that off. We could hear you perfectly fine. So if you want to just mute YouTube and then talk away, that would be great. That's why we're testing out the system, ladies and gentlemen, now today. So we can figure out all of these little bugs.
The system, ladies and gentlemen, now.
There you go. I can hear you.
We can figure out all of these little bugs. Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Matteo? He's messing around with his settings there. Welcome to the live show, everybody. These are the things that you have.
The system. There you go. I can hear you. We can figure out all of these little bugs. Yeah.
You hear me now, Matteo?
I can hear you.
Yeah, but you're listening to the
settings there.
You're listening to the feedback from the YouTube channel, and that's why you're getting a little messed up, because you're listening to YouTube instead of listening to what we have going on the Uber conference. So you need to mute your YouTube. If you come in, let's see if I got
You're listening to the feedback from the YouTube
there. Is that better?
Channel, and that's why you're getting a little messed up, because you're listening to YouTube instead of listening to what we have going on the Uber conference. So you need to mute your YouTube.
So if you come down here, maybe you can set your speaker type to whatever it is that you have going there, and that's your microphone, because we can hear you perfectly fine through the mic, and then select your speaker type.
I have no sound coming in.
But we can hear you. Now I'm muted. Testing.
So anyway, hello from Nancy. I'm here all the way in France. Here is 10 p.m. and thanks. It was a great presentation, Joseph. And you've already done a wonderful introduction to, way more than an introduction to Tulip. You've gone down the details. I'll switch on YouTube again just to hear your voice, and I'll mute my conference.
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly fine, Matteo. A little bit of breaking up, so speak a little bit louder or more into the mic so we don't have that choppy cutout. But other than that, we can hear you perfectly fine. So you can just give the audience an idea of Tulip, where it's used, what kind of companies are using it, the open source aspect of it. Just give them all of those finite details. I'm not sure what happened to Matteo there, because I would really like him to talk about Tulip because it is such an awesome, awesome uh, platform. And like I said, we first originally thought about, because we need something for project management, because that's what we do. We do development of software. We need a way to handle all of this. We've always worked, prior to Tulip, we worked in a waterfall method. I've been working with a waterfall method since, I first started programming back in '85. So this lent itself to move to using more of an agile approach. And one of the systems that we had in place was called Redmine. And Redmine was awesome. We had made so many modifications to Redmine. It could do our billing, it can spit out reports, it can, we customized it. One of the things that happened is that every time there was a new release, every time there was an update to Redmine, we had to go back and modify our code. It's running on Ruby on Rails. So we had to make all of those modifications, and it was just tough.
I'm sorry for this delay. I was just listening to your feedback. So Tulip, it's a fully open source product that is mainly developed in France by a company which is called Denali. There's 22 developers in the company, and they full-time develop Tulip. That's our job. And Tulip today is used in a wide variety of ways, all the way from small startups just to synchronize their work among people working remotely, all the way to huge companies, large companies anyway, like Ericsson, who's deployed over 50,000 users on Tulip and several thousand projects, of course. And it's used for all sort of things. Of course, the aim, at least the origin of Tulip, is software engineering. Allow companies to put software engineering practices and ensure a good programming job, because programming is completely different from any other sort of industrial production. So you really need tools that allow you to get your teams to develop together. And evermore, programming is not only a coders thing, but you need to get several different profiles working together. So you need to have a common communication tool that allows developers, architects, engineers, customers, all sort of profiles to work together. And Tulip, thanks to its flexibility, allows you to do so. And it's a unique tool with respect to the power of configuration and the ease of administration. It's amazing how a couple of people can manage over tens of thousands of people. And this is thanks also to the possibility of delegating commissions and having local project admins who are responsible for the local projects, and also the templating system that allows, of course, to easily deploy projects based on pre-existing templates. A unique feature of Tulip also is the way in which you can create directly from within your stories, if you're working Agile, Scrum, or from your tasks, or from whatever you create within Tulip, you can also generate validation campaigns by creating the validation test definition and when you create your task or your story. And then you can deliver validation campaigns that can trace and be sure that and prove that you've done all the necessary steps in order to validate a project. So it's a very global tool, going from project planning, source management, test, configuration, validation, continuous integration, documentation, collaboration, and all within Tulip. That allows you to deploy Tulip and allow your different projects to start a new project with what they need. If they need Git, SVN, Wikimedia, all they have to do is click on an activation setting, and that's it. There's no install to do, there's no update to do, because it's done automatically by the centralized Tulip update. I hope this is clear, and I will stop talking now and let the screen catch up on YouTube so that I can hear anything that you're saying. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Joseph. Great initiative.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Matteo. I mean, it is an absolute awesome application. I think next time what we'll do, and this is kind of why we set it up this way, I think next time what we'll do is that through the Uber conference, you don't have to use your computer to phone in. If you want to phone in from your landline and watch the YouTube video on the screen, that can work perfectly fine as well. With Uber Conference, there are over 50 countries in which you can phone in locally. So you would just phone in locally to any one of these from any one of these countries, and then from there you can join the Uber Conference and you can use your landline. So things like the breaking up of this audio and stuff like that would not take place because you won't be using your bandwidth to stream the video, especially if you don't have a great quality of bandwidth or that you can use up for both visual and audio going at the same time. So you would be able to just phone in from your landline and watch it on YouTube. That's, as we went through like all of our different scenarios, should we use just Uber Conference and just display with inside of Uber Conference, because we have that ability. We can come in here and we can just go screen share, but of course this would only screen share to the people who are in the conference, that's in the Uber Conference itself. It doesn't lend itself to others even inside the company. So let's say a company requests to have a demo, They really don't want all of their employees to take place on the conference call, but they do want them to participate in watching the live stream and maybe ask their questions through a chat or something. So that's one of the things. And I'm going to mute Mateo because I can hear him in the background there. So that's kind of why we went this route. The one thing that we've been trying to work on for the last couple of days is the latency. For me, I got the latency down to about 2 seconds, but that still gives me that I'm speaking and then the feedback is coming back into my ears 2 seconds later of me talking. So there's still that latency issue, but I think overall, I think this really lends itself to a broader audience and allows us to broadcast to a greater group. And at the end of the streaming, the video is available for viewing by anyone. Or if we decide to restrict it, we can restrict it to only people who have the link. So there's so many options. You know, whether or not we would have done Facebook for our streaming, you know, Twitch, or there's just so many streaming services, but we kind of, I don't think YouTube is the best for live streaming, but it is one that's accessible to multiple people in multiple regions, multiple countries. So that's why we picked, you know, YouTube, even with its latency issues. That's why we picked it. So with that, if nobody else has any messages for us in the chats. Oh, I see Tim had joined us. If nobody else has any questions, we'll kind of close this off. And again, you can register for your own personal demo and, you know, give us your scenario, and we'll tailor a option for you that's found in the link for scheduling a demo. There's a link in there. I think it's KB1 EMOS-demo. You can find the link there. And then once you do that, you'll come into here and you'll pick your time. Let me just go to the main page first and foremost. So you can just then pick your date and time. And like I said, we've kind of staggered them so that we can accommodate people in different regions of the world. That's why we have like a 7 p.m. Eastern time. But if we're somewhere in, oh, here we go, Australia, then, you know, that most of the time they're not going to show up at 3 a.m. in the morning. That's kind of crazy, but they will show up at 11. So it just gives that flexibility in order to be able to demo to people in different regions when they're actually awake. You don't have to wake them out of bed to get them to participate. So we just kind of stagger those every other week. So with that, thank you, Mateo, for participating and giving us a little bit of information on Tulip. I hope you can join in more of our live demos as they get set up. We'll also inform you so that you can come in and tell people about Tulip. Again, everybody, Tulip is an open source platform, and if you're using SAP, you know, you pay for that. It's an open source platform. So if you actually wanted to deploy this all on your own and host it on your own site, or Tulip also has some programs where you can host on their systems that they have. You can host it with them, you know, mess around with it. The only thing that you would be missing is this bridge that we've created between you know, Tulip and SAP Business.ONE, and that flexibility. But you would be able to use them both independent of each other. And with that, I would like to thank the participants that joined us, and I would also like to thank those who are watching this broadcast afterwards. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Great job. Bye.
Bye. All right. Ciao.
Ciao.